I'm standing in front of a nice Riptide blue, as Tyler Hoover loves to say, Trail Boss EV, which means one thing. We just got back from another trip to Detroit. It seems like we get some parts for an EV1 and I get a nice truck to drive for 30 days every time. Detroit's not that bad, but I wanted to set the tale because I had no clue how exciting this trip's gonna be. You guys are gonna love it. We get to see things no one gets to see. And the big goal of this invitation from GM is they wanted to show us just how much of the EV1 DNA still lives on in cars today. We're gonna get a really special look into all kinds of things, battery technology, the computers, the wiring, and you know what, I get it. Some of you guys prefer carburetors and points, computers scare you. It's okay. Yes, there's still a lot of wiring, but they're a whole lot more reliable than they used to be. So join us on a special trip when we jump back in time here in just a second to see the original introduction. And I find a job that I wouldn't mind doing if I ever wanted to stop being an influencer. Let's go to the Milford Proving Grounds.
Let's go!
Welcome to the shop. I'm Jared, and this is the Questionable Garage, and we are in Detroit again. We've got some more parts to pick up, but GM has been amazing hosts, and they're not like, hey, just come up and get a crate. They really have been amazing to help share knowledge and share experiences. And probably 80% of you have seen the Milford Proving Grounds, and you're as excited as I am. If you know anything about cars, testing, GM's history, this is car mecca. Like, it's awesome to get here. It's amazing to be here, but it's not just me they invited. They also invited Billy.
I'm back too.
Of course, it's 212. Of course Billy's gonna be here. Do you understand where we are?
I think it's time for us to dive deep and make the EV1 for the people a real thing.
But do you understand where we are here today?
Oh, a small town outside of Detroit.
He's gonna learn how special the Milford Proving Grounds really are. I'm not 100% everything we get to see, but knowing what GM has done for us before, it's gonna be insane. We're gonna learn some stuff, and it's gonna be a fantastic time. So I say we get back in our truck, and let's get inside.
Let's go.
All right.
What do you want?
I said I want a video of the Hummer with the front tires 3 feet off the ground.
As long Dwayne can capture that, right?
Yeah, as long as we capture it, we're good.
The Vehicle Software and Engineering Department is responsible for all the software and electrical hardware that goes into GM vehicles. All right, we are standing in a lab at Milford Proving Grounds with Clyde.
Hi, I'm Clyde. I'm the Vice President of Vehicle Software and Electronics here at General Motors. My team's responsible for essentially all of the electrical hardware that's in GM vehicles, so think of everything from wiring harnesses and switches to high-performance compute that enables infotainment and ADAS. My team also delivers all of the lower layers of the software stack that enable that core vehicle functionality like braking, steering, lighting, and then essentially we put together that lower layer of the platform that allows infotainment and ADAS applications to be layered on top of it.
Basically, you're in charge of making sure everyone is friends in the car.
Exactly.
And what you touch does what it's supposed to do.
Yep, it's about building that common stable foundation that allows applications to get rapidly deployed on top of it and create new exciting feature content for our customers.
Yeah, the car is a great product and you don't realize just how many computers are making everything work at the same time.
Yeah.
And I see some computers that I'm familiar with in front of us here. I wanted to ask you about these and see if you could give us a little tour of what you got here.
Yeah, so when we were getting ready for you guys to come out, I was chatting with the team because you're going to be meeting several different members of my team and seeing some of the kind of behind the scenes stuff they do here at the Proving Grounds. Several of them, have long history working on EVs and a lot of passion. They were out watching, some of your recent videos in terms of the progress on the EV1 project, and they started actually digging out some actual EV1 parts out of their cabinets. So I thought it would be kind of cool to bring those and just show you. I know you guys are deep into your restoration, but I'll also give you a little insight as to the core passion that exists in the team here around EVs and what they do, and you'll see that throughout the day here. Mm-hmm. I also brought over a couple of these are some other modules that are examples of our pulled out of our current production product, and we can chat a little bit more about those as we're kind of walking around the lab here and seeing and talking about some things.
Because this looks like a fuse box, but anyone really since 2012, there's been versions of these really smart fuse boxes in, and
Yeah, and so as we talk about our next gen architecture that we announced coming in 2028, the days of having fuses and relays in your car will be completely gone. Those fuses and relays will be replaced with, a term we call e-fuses, but those are really power FETs. So that allows us to intelligently control power flow through the entire vehicle. The vehicle can reset itself. If it actually sees a circuit that's, potentially had a temporary short, it will automatically essentially cut the fuse and then it will reset itself. Wow. And so we're super excited about what that technology offers to our customers.
It kind of will ultimately, diagnostic side, if there is a problem, instead of looking at the 2,000 wires in a car, the technician gets a report and says it's 1 or 2 wires.
Yeah. When our vision is when the car shows up at the dealer, if it needs to be repaired, we actually can point the technician to exactly what they need to go do, really automating all that diagnostics.
So looking at some of these modules, like I said, this is very familiar. That's the battery module.
And it was in the battery pack, so it looks like it was built to withstand a little bit more.
A little bit more weather, and we know that one was basically all the communication, the line taps from the battery went into that, and it talked to all the different computers.
VIN 242.
242.
Hey, not too far off from ours. This is the PCM. It goes inside of the PIM, right?
Yep, the PIM. So that's one of the 3 main modules that live in there.
B for Billy, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then this one, this is infamous for breaking all the time, and the HTCM.
Yeah, that was the one that they tried to give us last time, and we weren't sure what it was because they're like, oh, it was on this junction box, because in all of our S10s, it's under the seat, so.
This is the body control module. So this controls a lot of the core functions in the vehicle. So when we talk about body, that's things like lighting, HVAC, your seat controls, all that's up integrated into this single module.
Will that be mounted inside the car, or?
Yeah, this is mounted inside the car, typically under the dash, I believe. So if you sort of take a step back in time, software was introduced into vehicles really started to come in the late 1970s, and it was focused on combustion engine controls. Mm-hmm. And basically through the 1980s and through the 2000s, sort of embedded system by embedded system started to add software and controls. And you eventually got to this point where very highly contented vehicles, to your point, might have like 30, 40 different ECUs. But what was interesting about that time frame, they still used a very simple communication network, very similar to like we were talking about in the EV1, where there was really minimal communication happening between those different ECUs. But that all, and so if you sort of looked at the signaling complexity, it grew sort of very linearly, but pretty flat over that 20-year period.
So with every new ECU?
You added a couple more signals, but really the signals that you added, they were just what that individual ECU needed to go do its thing.
Yeah.
And then really, you'll hear this term around software-defined vehicle that's sort of loosely thrown around all over the place.
Yeah.
Software-defined vehicle really started about 10 years ago, and it's where I'll say we started to really look at, you've got all of these distributed computers in the car, what are the unique ways we can actually make them work together to deliver like new features or significantly optimize that experience. So the signaling complexity in the last 10 years actually grew exponentially. So think of like the first 20 years of software in cars having a few thousand signals, growing into the hundreds of thousands.
Wow.
So you can think about like how complicated that became to manage. So that's really what drove us to, I'll say, this up integration strategy where you're driving core body functions into a body controller. This is actually the infotainment controller, so anything related to the center stack controls and the human interface controls. And then this is actually the driver assist features, so think Super Cruise controller, where all that automated driving content is up integrated.
That's spoiling me so much more. Like at first, when I first left with it, I could not like take my hand. I just had to keep, and then it was like, all right, it's kind of good at actually doing this.
Isn't it amazing? Like, so when we first started developing Super Cruise, going back a few years, I was kind of a lot like you. I mean, we were chatting before. I think our backgrounds are pretty similar, and I was kind of skeptical of the technology, but I'm amazed at when you take that driver workload away, how game-changing it is for commutes in terms of like giving you some of your life back.
Yeah, it's less stressful when, and that up integration or all the computers talking together and all that software code, it's for the simplest thing, like now when you approach your vehicle in the wake up function. When it detects your key in your pocket, it does the nice little light wake up, it will unlock the doors, it moves the seat to your position, it'll, remote start pre-warm, like just all of these things that are they're wonderful, minimal quality of life things that you don't think about. But on the back side of that, that's your key detect computer, then it's the security confirmation, then that's sending off, all right, we want to run the lights this way, and that's on the back side, that's thousands of processes happening and making it happen seamlessly. Now I understand, there's guys that want points in a carburetor because computers scare you. They're kind of scary, somewhat, but they're pretty reliable.
They're exceptionally reliable. And beyond the reliability side, the additional performance they enable is really awesome. And you'll actually get to see some of that today. The Milford Proving Grounds is a really special place. I love working here. I was actually a resident here for the first 15 years of my career. And like that deep integration of software and hardware is really what we do here. And the level of vehicle performance that gets enabled through that deep integration of software to hardware, it's incredible what those systems enable.
So, and then you had some more stuff to show us back here.
Yeah, so here this is kind of, I'll say, current gen electrical architecture, and there are some additional ECUs. We're not showing the propulsion controls here, brake controls, but this was a pretty significant step in up integration that we did here around body, infotainment, and automated driving. And then we announced last fall that we're going to be, launching our next gen architecture, which we're showing here. So the next gen architecture really drives to a central compute approach. So here is the central, a prototype version of the central compute. So here we have up integrated all of the core vehicle functionality as well as where the applications run. So think of propulsion controls, lighting controls, all that body function we talked about that used to be distributed is now centralized here, along with automated driving controls in that software stack, as well as infotainment. So you truly have a central compute. This is actually, just explaining a little bit on the table here, this is a liquid cooled device. These orange cables are just coolant. This is just kind of a test setup here the team's using to do early bring up on the hardware, and so that's just a little chiller to allow the team to actually start to exercise this unit here.
So this becomes the main brain of the car.
Yep. Yeah, so literally all of the controls of the car live in that single box.
So if we lose access to this somehow,
this has redundancy built into it. So all of the core vehicle systems that are required for safety and many of the regulatory systems have some level of redundancy built into those systems. So you're never a single failure away from having a loss of propulsion or a loss of brakes. Most of those systems actually have 3 layers of redundancy in the design philosophically.
Awesome. So Clyde, this next generation central compute architecture is not only for EVs, right?
Yeah, it's for ICE as well. So this will be common across all of our GM vehicles. And this is part of us really being able to leverage software reuse at scale across our entire portfolio, be it EV or ICE. So, when we have new feature content, we can broadly deploy it across the entire fleet. That's really core to the investment we're making here. And, this is really about abstracting that software away from the, a very specific in-vehicle hardware. And that's where these devices that we call aggregators are really core to that strategy. Because these aggregation devices, they communicate through an Ethernet ring back to the central compute. And these are basically managing signal and power distribution throughout the vehicle. So, this is an interesting thing if you actually think about the EV1 you're working on. There's a 12 volt power grid in the vehicle, and then there's a signaling grid in the vehicle. And if you ask yourself, it's kind of, why is that? Well, it's kind of because 12 volts existed from 100 years ago, and then we started layering on signaling into the vehicle. So this is actually up integrating that functionality of distributing power and signal. So there's no real, if you would think about it, software making decisions in these devices. These are, think of them almost as like a router in the vehicle that are gathering up signals and distributing signals and communicating back to the central compute in the vehicle.
And that's also, that exists, the smart fuses as well. So that's
the smart fuses are integrated right in here, yep. So power comes into these, and the Ethernet ring comes into these, and then based on the specific vehicle you're in, it configures the I/O to what it's connected to, and and away you go. So again, this is really about getting sort of the software abstracted from the vehicle. So these aggregators are common across different vehicle lines, and there's basically a software configuration file that maps which inputs and outputs are connected to what things.
Are they all like basically different message buses that you could subscribe to if you wanted to get that data for your application?
Yes. Yep. And there's also specific drivers in these. In some cases, you might actually be driving a motor directly.
Very cool.
Yep. So it's a combination of different data buses as well as direct to actuator
no
control.
Logic at all.
No logic at all.
Yeah.
So that's in the aftermarket performance world. Like those are we're just now seeing the power distribution modules where they're integrating, not to the point that you can drive a large motor, but we're just now starting to see that. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, that would be fun to wire your race car with, because you think about all the fuses, how light that is.
And it's kind of interesting as you think about like the aftermarket world and kind of, I'll say, the fundamental, philosophy behind some of this design approach. What's super important as you talk about like being able to rapidly deploy software content is, again, that software content is abstracted from vehicle hardware. And these give you that same flexibility. Like in the aftermarket world, they're trying to figure out like, how do we enable, I'll say, folks like yourself to do cool stuff with software with a common thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same idea here, right? I'll say a very common core electrical architecture that can be deployed across the vehicle program.
Clyde, thank you so much I know you're very busy, and I appreciate you knocking out so much time for us and showing kind of the future. And it's kind of neat to see the progression, how much of the past, not even just electric, but ICE, everything is moving production forward, and the brains behind making the experience happen. So, and thank you for being a part of us coming to Milford, because if you guys don't know, the fact that we are here filming is very unique, very special. So we all get to go on an amazing adventure, EV1 oriented, but here, since I'm over here.
Yeah, hey, I'm glad we were able to make this work for you guys to come out today. And like we said kind of at the beginning, super excited about the project you guys are working on. You're gonna find lots of, I'll say, electrification enthusiasts as you go through the day here. And great chatting with you guys, and looking forward to see how your project comes along.
We'll have to do some laps with it. What do you think, Billy?
Yeah, I mean, maybe one day we bring 2 and 2 out here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Our next stop at the Milford Proving Grounds is Building 16, where we're going to meet up with Liha Lee, the head of the Battery Systems Control team. Here, the team is responsible for developing all of the software that keeps that battery safe. In the electric car, the battery is your energy source, so it's got to be controlled perfectly. We're going to take a quick history lesson and then see how they're able to test all of their software without ever actually needing a battery to make sure it's safe before it ever visits hardware. All right, we have made it over to Building 16, something I've learned doesn't have a name, maybe the electrification controls.
You got it.
That'll work, we'll go with that. And I am with...
my name is Lihua Li. I am the director of Battery System Controls team. So my team does all battery software for all GM electrified vehicles. What that means, all EV and all hybrids.
Oh, I like the hybrids. I'm a big fan of it. Now we've
Jared, look what I found.
That's where you went.
Oh, wow.
I wonder how many people have ever used one of those here.
A quiz, what is this?
That's the Magna charger. That's how we would paddle charge the EV1 and the S10.
Yeah, this is where all the story starts.
Begins.
Yes.
So we are standing behind a Bolt battery pack.
This is actually a Volt battery
This
pack.
is the Volt battery
Yeah.
pack. So we've talked about the hardware already and the chemistry of the batteries, but that's maybe half the puzzle?
Oh, yes. It's really awesome to have a battery capabilities, the hardware, the cells, and the chemistry, all of that. You could think of this as like the muscles of the system.
Yeah.
Now, what our team do, we're the brain. The battery software is the brain, and also if you look at all of those sensing electronics, those are the nerve systems. We, battery softwares, we work hand in hand, super tight with those hardwares. And when we convert those battery capability into the driving experiences you can feel in the road, like the driving range, the fast charging experiences, all the push you can feel on the street.
Now, one thing I noticed right away with the wires on this battery, there's quite a few more of them. So if we go back to the S10 and the EV1, the lead acid cells, there were basically 26 voltage taps, well 28 if we include the shunt resistor, and 4 temperature sensors. So 35, 40 wires tops to control the battery. You were saying off camera, this isn't even as advanced as we are now.
Oh, well, we advanced that. This is like 20 years past the EV1 times, right? So it's way better. So EV1 is really where the story started. As you mentioned, we have 26 batteries, but in EV1 times, even at that time, even with 26 lead acid, we actually are not able to, at that time, measure every single battery. We cannot measure every single battery, we cannot measure their temperature, but we are able to measure the EV1, the pack voltage. So our battery software at that time is more of a guardrail style. We get the job done, not very precisely. There's a lot of energy that's actually left on the table. But then when it comes to volt, actually both times, we're much more deep into that system, as you mentioned. We can measure every single one of them. This is volt, so we got like 96 in series. 96 connected all together. We can measure the voltage and temperature of every single of those cell modules. So this way, what it gives us is we now know all the operation state of every cell. And we'll know which one is strong, which one is relatively weaker, and where is a thermal hotspot. But the point of there is, once you see that in our battery software, if we know it, we can manage it. We do cell balancing, and we do actually very active thermal management to making sure that our battery performs altogether in a very awesome way.
So kind of like what you were saying, the EV1 was guardrail. That's bumper bowling. Like you throw it down, you're not going to hit a guardrail, but if you throw really hard, you still can shoot over into the lane next to you. Like you could with the old software, but this is now stepping up to the point where our bumpers have 4-foot walls that it's really hard to throw the ball into the next lane. Like we're actually, on a safety standpoint, not even just performance, we're keeping a battery pack incredibly
we're being
safe.
active here, right?
Yes.
You know, it's all in real time. We're making this happen. Where the EV1, you know, very common. You have one of your 12 volts gets low, your whole pack is busted now, and there's no
Exactly.
way to target that one to bring it back up.
Exactly. So we're able to target every single one of them. So we're much more, I'll say, much safer, and we're also able to actually get the maximum of this battery hardware can offer out to our customers, because we can go very precise. Actually, this one is also the first time we do active, I'll say, liquid cooling. And with this, we enable tremendous good experiences. Like the boat is the first time we do DC fast charge, because now we're able to push a lot of power into the battery pack with confidence. And we got like this one is 2017, 240 miles with one charge. It's a pretty awesome experiences. And we also bring like EV1 times, we started regen braking. And in boat, we brought it to the next level. You might have drove it, one pedal.
One pedal.
Yeah.
I'm becoming a convert to one pedal like that. When the Trail Boss left and I'm suddenly driving my 2-mode hybrid, I'm like, oh, brake! I actually have to slow down again.
It was so funny. I would just exclusively use one pedal. My friends gave me the nickname "No Brakes Billy."
Oh yeah, no. You get very attracted to that experiences once you have it.
Yeah.
And then I see in front, it's just the generation, the evolution of the different computer systems. What's kind of funny, now granted, this is just a computer case, but how much even the 2016 Malibu Hybrid computer case looks like some of the EV1 cases, and then down the whole generation, and just again.
Yeah. I mean, because our software gets much more complicated and more powerful. Then, you know, just like a brain, when you get smarter, you get more powerful, you need a more computing power to support it. So this really shows the evolution of how controllers.
Yeah, and the computers get smaller and smaller, and
Mm-hmm.
I like your mechanical design gets nicer and nicer as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. exactly. That's there because the thing is, you're thinking about the EV1 times, like our battery model. Because really, what the battery do, one of the major things is to estimate like state of charge. You really know what the state of charge is there, and then that translates to the range. It's more like in a fuel tank in an ICE vehicle, but it's a very different fuel tank because EV1 is like 26 of them stack up together.
Right.
And here is 96. If you go to Hummer, that's like a 200.
Yeah.
So we need to know every single one of them to be accurate. And another major thing of that is in our battery software, it's different than the ICE vehicles, is the state of charge is really not a measurement. Every single battery is an awesome connection of chemistries and anode and cathode. They really don't tell you, hey, here's my state of charge. Am I full? I'm not full. So all we do is we measure the voltage, measure the current, we measure the temperature, and we match it with the battery model and to estimate the state of charge. What it really means is the more accurate you can measure those, and the more precise you can measure the most, and also the more understanding you have on the battery you can estimate state of charge, the battery can take care of the battery. So along this 30-year journey, our battery model and our accuracy of the measurement just grows like this. Yeah.
I'm curious now, today, like, is every car, does it have a personalized model for its specific battery? Does it have history of that battery?
Oh, absolutely. We have those. We have actually all the data. We understand the specific battery of every chemistry. Like I think Kurt and Andy introduced you our chemistry journey, right? So it starts with lead acid in EV1, and then here it's the lithium ion. And then when it gets to our current generation, we have NMC, we have some LFP, lithium iron phosphate. Our next generation, the LMR. We understand every single chemistry and the model of that, and it was embedded in our control. And beyond that, today, we're also able to add data in. Every cell test, every pack test, system test, the vehicle test, all of data, we pour them into a data pool. And we fit it into our data pipeline. So our algorithms, battery algorithms, just keep getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And one more thing that we have today that we don't have in the past is our over-the-air update capabilities. So once we get all this data, once we keep developing our control algorithms, we get smarter and better. We not only get those new battery software into our new vehicles, we also go through over-the-air update, give it to the vehicles, to our customers in the parking lot. So what it means is our vehicle, when it gets to a customer hand, it continues to get smarter.
Yeah.
It saves that having to go to the dealership, enhancing the consumer experience in that you're not going to the dealer, you're not having to get a reflash. Your car's parked at home, connected to Wi-Fi, sends out, it's like, hey, we need 30 minutes to supply this update. Do you have 30 minutes? Yep.
Exactly.
Here's your update. And
after that, your car just gets smarter.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So one thing we do need to hit is all the awesome control software that we do, it will not hit our customer, and not get to our customer until they get tested fully and thoroughly. That is where we're going to go next, the hardware in the loop lab. What is it for? You want to get there?
Yeah, let's check it out.
Okay. Now you are in our Hill lab, hardware in the loop lab. So this is where our real production software, a real controller, and real sensing system connects with simulated battery and simulated vehicle platform. All of those metal blocks, I know they don't look fancy. They actually, every single one of them is like a vehicle platform. They're Hummers, they are Bolt, they're E-Rays, and actually some of them are our next generation controllers and next generation chemistries. So what we do here is we can simulate all the operating conditions and we test this system thoroughly, so 24/7. So before our software even gets to our customers, they are tested, they've gone through the entire battery and vehicle life.
Wow.
I mean, up to the North Pole, down to the Mojave Desert, from beginning of life to the end of life. And then we also experience gentle driving, super fast DC fast charging, or you like wide open throttle very significantly.
so this is the first time it goes from a computer, tests here,
Yes.
before it even sees a battery pack. This is
Yeah.
its first hardware test.
Exactly. Before it sees the battery, before it goes to the vehicle. One thing to note, you will be experiencing the watt to freedom mode in Hummer EV, and it's tested here. That's like 2.8 second driving experiences, 0 to 60 miles. We test it thoroughly here before it gets there. Now, with that, I'll hand over to Tom to walk you through the test setup, and Gary's going to show you a real test.
Yeah, welcome to that point, to our D-Space Hill Lab for electrification batteries.
Tom,
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So, like you guys were just saying, this is the first place where our software actually gets married to our hardware. We have had a lot of history in this lab. We've tested since Gen 1 Volt in this lab, but I know, at least for EV1, since we have EV1 and we're talking about it, EV1 was largely tested in a bespoke environment or in a vehicle environment. When I first started, there was a lot of odd little components and contraptions that people were creating for testing even Gen 1 Volt hardware. Now we move forward to using what are these high voltage hardware in the loop tests, and these give us the ability to do a lot more testing, a lot more thoroughly, a lot more quickly. We do have, when we did the Gen 1 Volt, we actually only had a low voltage hill, so you'll see here we have a high voltage power supply and a low voltage power supply doing both. That allowed us to do a lot of our controls work, but the batteries testing was still largely done in Warren in our BSL. And you can think of that as like, well, when I'm testing a battery, I have to discharge and charge it, right? These cycles take time. Here, all I have to do is reinitialize the hill to whatever voltage I want to start my profile from, which we'll see in a moment.
So these basically, you just tell it, output this voltage, and it can rapidly...
Yep, it can change the voltage to whatever you want it to be. But it's pretty neat, right? Like that's kind of conceptually, it allows us to speed up our development. And you guys saw the different battery electronics components on the table earlier. We have hills for all of those components. So if we turn around here, we can see that this rack here is actually doing the Chevrolet Corvette E-Ray. So more of a hybrid configuration. We can see our voltage is only around 300 volts there, and it's not a full electrification type battery. But
that's the rapid discharge and recharge.
Yeah, we can recharge and discharge and run similar drive profiles that a customer might do with the Corvette E-Ray. This setup though is our latest Bolt configuration. So some of our newer battery electronics are here in this cabinet. So we again have the pack voltage sensing system. So this would be like what we're using to detect isolation faults between high voltage and low voltage. We have our cell sensing boards here. These are measuring all of the cells. Now obviously you can see we don't have a real battery here, right? So all of these little boards here are providing some number of cell voltages up to these boards. So this is a completely independent, isolated system from our low voltage system, which allows us to basically, again, simulate any type of battery faults that we want, or any type of drive profile that we want, or any type of customer. So Billy was talking about living on top of a mountain, right? Like that's not a test case that we do often, but people do have it where they start their day off at high SOC and regen for a while and then drive in. These are all components for the electronic side. We also have our battery controller. So our battery controller controls a lot of things with the battery. So our thermal management that we talked about, our charging, the contactors, isolation measurements, all of these things are done by that controller. So there's a lot of software in that controller today. As a comparison, in our Volt, we had 64K of RAM. This has, 6 to 8 megs of RAM in it. So like huge leaps and bounds in terms of like software complexity.
And generally you keep these, more or less, one of these modules will exist for, at minimum, warranty life of a vehicle. So if you have an oddball fault with software or something, you could, in theory, attempt to recreate and rapidly work through that to potentially say, is it software or is it hardware? So you're able to take field data and bring it back in here? Or
Correct,
is this
we can bring field data back in here. We can actually take warranty return parts and plug them in here, obviously. Okay. I mean, our goal here is largely around running automated tests 24/7. But sometimes there are cases where we'll come in and need to like do some more bespoke testing with an environment. Okay. And to that point, like if someone reports like, oh, I'm getting low cell voltage, maybe we can come in here and say, okay, well, what happens if we bring the cell voltage low? That's not a test case you would want to do in a car, and you really can't. In our cars that we get here for usage, like there is no access to the battery, right? To access the battery, it's got to be dropped and pulled to do any of that type of work.
But for the most part, it's software, things that you've measured and learned in the field to create the profile of, okay, this battery chemistry at minus 30 degrees is going to behave this way. So you're loading the software profile of how that cell should work, and then you're testing based off that profile.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can pull in data from the vehicle and run it here. That's an interesting test case. And then from here, right after we've tested this, we can start getting into BSL testing, chill testing, which we'll go to and demonstrate that in a minute. and then we can get into vehicle. And I think with that, we can turn it over and start our demo. So Garrett Parks will be doing some of the demo. And
All right, well, now we got chairs. This is the comfortable spot. So we're Garrett.
Yep.
So what do you do here?
I am one of the software engineers here. So I work on like the hardware software integration. So a lot of like talking to the battery pack like Tom just explained. And what we've got here is this is like our hardware test infrastructure. And what we're gonna kind of show off is like we're simulating right now one of the Chevy Bolts. And we're gonna show you an example of like one of the drive cycles we might take this through. So there's kind of a lot going on the screen. What we're simulating here is we've got like a vehicle dynamics model. We've also got a battery model simulating everything that the battery thinks is happening. So like as an example, I can turn our drive cycle off here, I can take the brake off, and I can go and hit the gas, right? And now you'll see we're drawing power out of the battery pack. And really what we as a team want to monitor with the automated testing we do here is let's test all the different scenarios we might put a customer in and make sure that our battery management system can respond correctly to that. So you see some of the kind of big things on here. You'll see like here's like the power our battery pack's drawing. You can see what speed we're actually flying right now, 160 kph. Maybe I'll back that off a little bit. We monitor things like pack voltage. You guys are familiar with that from the EV1, what kind of pack current we're drawing. And we want to just make sure that all the customer use cases we're considering for that. And the way we could do this is we have these vehicle dynamics models simulating like, hey, when I hit 100%, like what does my power actually need to do, right? And the cool thing we talk about, like how we work with the cell chemistries, is we can go over to here to, I think, this guy. And you can see when we say a battery pack, there's really, I think, 107 individual cells in this car. And each of one of these has their own battery cell model behind it. So when we're hitting the accelerator and trying to do 0 to 60 or something, we're saying, hey, vehicle dynamics model, how much power do I need? And then we're feeding that into the individual cell models, and that goes from this model over to the hardware tower here, and it'll say, hey, now I need you to be 3.6 volts, and I need you to droop down this much and change the temperature, and we want to make sure that our battery management system can sense all that accurately. So this is a really cool thing for us. One of the coolest things, which Tom touched a little bit, is like before, if I wanted to test, like you mentioned your drive profile is very unique. Before, if I wanted to test that and test it at say 25 degrees C ambient or 20 degrees C ambient, I would have to either wait till it's that temperature out or ship a car somewhere to test it. Where now I can make an automated test to sweep through all those conditions, run your drive cycle all the way from like an Alaskan customer profile of like, it's minus 20 degrees C, you just jumped in your car and you want to do 0 to 60, to you're in Arizona and it's super hot out, your battery's already warm, and we can simulate all that before we ever even make it to a car. So that's kind of the nice thing of this. It lets us bring a lot of the like testing and development earlier in the vehicle life cycle. So by the time we're building our first test vehicles, these are super functional cars, which even like 10, 15 years ago, that initial integration was really a pain point for us.
Well, a good point of that, I just bought that 06 hybrid Silverado, not the 2-mode, what I'm arguing is the real world's dumbest. I found it was sold in 6 states: Florida, Washington, Oregon, Arizona, California, and then Alaska.
Hey.
And I'm assuming, like you just saying you simulated, I imagine they sold them in Alaska so they could get the data back.
Yep.
What happens when we throw these things in cold climate?
Yeah, one of the cool things you'll see later is the cold box. And it's cool and we have to test vehicles there, but it is hard to test, right? It's a good humid day. One of the things you might see when you're out there is when you bring a minus 30 degree car out and it's 70 degrees and humid, it'll flash freeze and you've got to scrape all the ice off it, where I don't have to deal with any of that. I can test exactly what I want to make sure my BMS is integrating good with the battery, and that when I move to the vehicle, we won't have any issues there.
One thing I noticed in your grid, the maps data, are you able to actually create a GPS route and it runs a drive, like?
Yeah, we can pick like, and there are even more advanced simulations than this, like some of our like autonomous driving and things like this. You can even see the 3D model of the car driving through space and time. So this is almost a little like less fidelity than some of the labs we have working on that autonomous driving stuff. But yeah,
would this take into account any like human factors? Because there's a lot of people that drive a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
You know, I can stretch my range really far, and then you put my brother in the car, and he is always getting less than the expected.
Yeah, like an example of that, you can almost see in this little box down here, we have like different drive cycle selectors. So this US 06 is kind of a good example. This is like the hot rod driver, right? We're gonna do a lot of hard acceleration, we're gonna do a lot of hard braking, different regen, and so we'll use these different like standardized drive profiles to simulate how different customers operate. Because we know everyone drives a little bit differently, right? And we need to make sure that our battery is happy in all of those different scenarios. And one of the cool things, like we can do this much testing now, which is awesome. But one of the challenges we've got from that is like we have so much data now. I mean, like when I finish running this test, we'll have a data log of everything we just did here and how do engineers parse through all that. And that's something GM's done really well in the recent years of data pipeline and automation for that. So now, like I'm running this test, and when it's done, that file will get uploaded to a server, right? And we'll have pipelines and dashboards every night that will go parse through all that data. And say, for example, someone over in Warren runs a test and they flag something for my diagnostic. I'll get a notification that says, hey, you need to look into this, right? Something happened yesterday. So we're pulling a lot of the validation earlier.
That's cool.
This is just one stop. So the next place you'll head to is the chill lab, where instead of having a simulated battery, now you're going to have the real hardware there. Right. So that's pretty fun. Before you go, does somebody want to try a 0 to 60 in the car?
Let's do it.
We burn off 9% battery.
Yeah, we have been cruising. Yeah.
We were cruising 85 to 100 there.
Pull the brake off and slam the gas. Let's see what kind of 0 to 60 we can pull out of this.
So brake off.
Boom.
There it is.
Oh, it's a lot of power.
And
Yeah, 350 watt or kilowatts is.
there's 60.
Yay.
Does it actually record it somewhere? Or?
Yep. Yeah, we'll save this data.
Oh, no, pull it.
Yeah.
So that's my 2027 Bolt EV.
Yep.
But before we get to go visit that cold box that Garrett was telling us about, we're going to go ahead and stop by the Electrified Propulsion and Energy Lab, where we're going to meet Brandon Jones. This is where they test the charging system, the ability to fill electricity into that battery. Also, there's maybe somebody there that has a little first-hand experience with some EV1 development from back in the day.
Hi everybody, I'm Brandon Jones. I work here in the Charging Integration Lab. I've been at GM for over 20 years and in the charging area for a little bit over 10 years. So this is the lab I work out of. This is where we bring all of our high voltage components together and integrate them all right before the vehicle, before it starts working. We have all of our controllers that reads battery information. We have all our different charge plugs that you can see there. We're able to charge at all various places in the world, in different countries and regions, and we're able to do this on the bench that's here. We're also...
There's no Magna charger.
What's that?
There's no Magna charger.
Magna charger? What's that?
The paddle charger.
Sorry. Yeah, none of them. Yeah.
I think it's outdated, Billy.
Well, you have the DC up top. You have regular 1772. What's on bottom there?
This is our new NACS inlet on here. So you've probably heard J3400 or NACS. That's the new Tesla standard that's coming out, and we're integrating that into our vehicles. So this is the first stop that it comes into here before we get to the vehicle, and we test all this stuff out. We have a lot of different test tools in the labs here where we run it through automated tests with different test tools to make sure that we can step through the charging process. And then we also put vehicles into the lab here and use some of these bigger charge stations like this EVgo Signet right here. And we're able to do...
Is that prepaid or do you gotta...
It's prepaid. You can swipe it for us, but yeah. So no, thanks for that. But it's on the house if you'd like to bring your car in here and do it.
So this is really the next step from the virtual...
Correct, yeah. So if you were visiting us up in the Hill lab up there where we have the battery, that's coming down into here. So we have a real physical battery and we're able to pull information off of there.
And you have real modules here.
Real modules and everything. So we really think of this as our vehicle. So we pulled out the high voltage propulsion system, brought in the charging system, and then we faked out kind of the rest of the parts of the cars there to make it work, yeah.
So this software kind of looks similar but a little bit different. So you mind if we interrupt you?
Oh, no problem. Yeah.
I'm Jared. What?
Hey, Nick Cathari.
Nick.
Good to meet you.
So you were, I guess, simulating some charges there, or?
Running some charge tests, yeah. All passing.
So do you just charge up, or do you also deplete, or how does that work?
We mostly do charging. We have methods we use to deplete the battery so we can do more charging. Yeah.
That'll work. And then how long have you been working with charging?
Since the 90s. I actually used to work in a lab pretty similar to this on EV1. Yeah.
The EV1?
Yeah.
This might be helpful.
Nick, what did you do on the EV1?
I worked on the BPM battery pack module, software testing, verification, system requirements, yeah.
Did you ever drive one? Or?
I did. I drove one for many months, actually.
Very cool.
What color was it?
It was silver.
Oh, silver. I was going to say, maybe he drove 159 and he went to that ball game.
The Clippers game?
The Clippers game. So the parts car, they found a Clippers ticket, and we're trying to figure out, found the country club it went to. Apparently it never went to an owner, so someone from GM was a member of a country club and enjoyed watching the Clippers. So battery.
So where was all the battery testing done for the EV1?
It was a lot of it was there at Troy Tech Park in Troy, Michigan. That was where kind of our headquarters were for engineering the EV1, and as well as around the country, like in Torrance and yep.
Very cool. And did you work on multiple battery chemistries? Were you working all?
I did, yeah. Actually, I joined the team when we were hardcore, focused on Gen 2, so like the Panasonic lead acid and the nickel metal hydride.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of testing was around that.
Very cool. Anything you remember from those days that you can remember back to?
I have a lot of good memories actually. It's funny with me with my career at GM. I worked in a lot of different areas, but it's kind of full circle because I'm working on charging again now. But yeah, a lot of the concepts and challenges for charging are the same today as they were then. Yeah, no, I have very, very good memories of that time in my career at GM. Yeah.
If you have like a favorite EV1 story, because we're trying to capture all of them, like just the quick 2 minute, 1 minute, 10 second, however long.
So favorite, probably when I went out to Van Nuys and we had to reflash our battery pack modules and do some testing on each vehicle before it was delivered to customers. And so yeah, that was a good experience. It was a lot full of EV1s and going through each one and getting them ready for delivery.
Very cool. Yeah, we'll be reflashing some EV1 soon as well.
You don't still have that floppy disk, do you?
Yeah, I'll check. I'll see. I think GM requirements are I don't have any of that anymore, but yeah.
Nobody has it.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
All right, well, thank you for taking us
We'll
back
let you
in
get back
time.
to your test. That was
Great.
Now we're finally heading over to the cold box inside one of the mini tracks at the Milford Proving Grounds. Here is where they're able to simulate the real-life cold environments that these batteries have to survive in. Just how cold? 40 degrees below. All right, like Brandon said, we are now at a cold box in Michigan. Also, we're at a cold box with Charlie and Mike. Who are you guys? What do you do? And what are we about to get to see?
Yeah, so Mike and I are propulsion calibrators. We work on the electric pickup trucks. And so a lot of the work we do is based on how the truck feels when you drive it. The cold box lets us basically, bring winter to any season of the year. So right now we've got a truck in the box. It's at minus 40 degrees. So we're gonna get you guys in the box.
That's Fahrenheit, right?
And Celsius.
Yeah, 40 degrees is the crossover.
Minus 40 Celsius.
That's where they cross.
They meet at
minus 40.
I didn't know.
So
I thought that was a joke.
we're gonna get you in the box and get you nice and cold.
So do we go through this door or is there a side door?
We're gonna go around. We have to shut it off to go in.
Oh, so you can't actively cool yourself.
Wayne. Michael, explain it to you.
Yeah. So this is a control box for the cold box, and if you can film inside, you'll see actually what the box is set to now. So it looks like right now the box is sitting at minus 31. The set point is at minus 40. So inside there's fans, and once you get in there, you'll experience the minus 40. So right now we're just gonna turn the box off, so you guys are good to go in, and Charlie can run you through the setup in the vehicle.
All right, we got to go to the door on the other side.
Yeah,
But
we'll loop around the other door. This is an emergency door only.
After you.
Oh!
Woo! Hey, there's.
Woo!
Yeah, so it.
Must feel nice for you, Jared.
It's a little.
It's a little warm still.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Can you turn it down any colder?
Minus 40 is as cold as these go.
Oh, I can only just start to see my
just
breath.
latch this.
Oh my goodness.
So what we do is we actually have heaters inside the truck to keep the windshield warm, because if you don't have these, it flash freezes over as soon as you drive out.
Oh yeah, immediately, right?
I remember them mentioning that.
So we'll get this one out.
The charge door is freezing back here.
Yeah.
What? It feels great. What are you talking about?
It's cold in the car too.
This feels great, Billy. What are you talking about?
So
this is like the right temperature.
So here, I'm gonna just check these in the back here.
Coming down.
I will say the cracking and creaking from the chiller is a little disturbing.
Yeah, it'll run a defrost cycle in a few minutes, but
Okay.
all right, I think we can hop in and get out of here.
Oh,
Oh, we gotta put on the seatbelt, which is frozen.
Acceleration limited by cold battery.
Yeah, so that's
Expected.
a lot of the testing we did in here was related to that messaging.
I'm like, you're still filming?
So Mike, what are you doing? Is she trying to attract other Hummers or what?
And now we're
I like
on.
that it loaded everything
Yep,
up.
so and now 1, 2, 3.
Let's go!
So, and then you can see how the torque raised there, right?